Sagittarius, the dark-haired sorceress is near you, and her energy is poisonous. Have you ever felt like your inner flame, the part of you that dreams, explores, and rises, has started to flicker? And you're not quite sure why. You haven't lost your direction, Sagittarius. You've just been absorbing something that was never yours to carry. Welcome to Zodiac Wisdom. I'm Sophia, a psychologist, astrologer, and someone who walks with souls like yours through the storms and into the light. If this is your first time here, please take a moment to subscribe, like, or share this message. Not for numbers or praise, but because every single view, every comment is a moment of healing. Not just for you, but for the community we're building together. Today's message is one I almost hesitated to share, because it reveals something many Sagittarians feel but never say out loud, that someone close to you is silently working against your fire. Not always out of hate, sometimes out of pain, but their presence has left traces in your life, unseen, unspoken, but deeply felt. Please stay with me until the end. The most powerful part of today's message will arrive in the final minutes, and I promise, what you hear may shift the way you see your past and your own power forever. If anything you hear resonates deeply, share your experience below. Your truth is welcome here. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Gate 1. The unseen presence. Who's been draining your fire? Sagittarius, you are ruled by Jupiter, the planet of truth, expansion, and freedom. Your soul was born to explore, to grow, to rise beyond limits and become a beacon of light for others. But what happens when your inner fire begins to dim? Not because of failure or fatigue, but because something or someone has been quietly feeding on your light. For many Sagittarius women I've worked with, especially those in their 40s, 50s, or 60s, this pattern is painfully familiar. A subtle exhaustion, a creative block, a sudden loss of direction, even when life looks fine from the outside. And when we trace the thread backward, it doesn't lead to a mistake they made, but to a presence they overlooked. Person, usually close, usually trusted, sometimes even loved. Let me tell you about Joanna, a 54-year-old Sagittarius woman who came to me feeling emotionally paralyzed. She had run her own small online craft business for years, raised 2 children with strength and optimism, and had built a life most would admire. But something was wrong. She couldn't sleep. Her motivation dried up. She felt guilty for success and confused by sudden waves of self-doubt. During our sessions, a pattern emerged. There was someone close to her, her cousin, also her neighbor, who was always supportive on the surface. But there were subtle digs. You're lucky, not talented. I wish I had time to play with crafts like you. Or that forced smile when Joanna received praise at family dinners. Nothing cruel. Nothing obvious. But over time it wore her down. Sagittarius, sometimes the most toxic energy doesn't scream. It whispers. It shows up in smiles that don't reach the eyes, in silence when you succeed, in support that feels off. And you, of all signs, often miss these signs, not because you're naive, but because you want to believe the best in people. You value honesty, directness, and light. So when someone cloaks harm in subtlety, your instinct is to explain it away. Maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe I'm being too sensitive. But I need to tell you what I told Joanna. No, you're not overreacting. You're awakening. Sagittarius, your intuition doesn't always come as a gut feeling. Sometimes it comes as resistance to do what once brought joy, as mental fog, as unexpected illness, as constant tiredness, even after a full night's sleep. And this isn't just emotional fatigue. This is energetic theft. The person you're thinking of right now, yes, that one, isn't wearing a witch's robe. They're not casting spells or lighting candles, but their energy carries resentment. They are intimidated by your brightness, your courage, your ability to rise even after a fall. And when someone doesn't know how to deal with their own pain, they often try to dim the light that reminds them of what they never became. Maybe she's a sister, a friend you've known for decades, a woman at work who always finds a way to compete, or someone in your family who once praised your success but now only finds fault. Whoever she is, her energy doesn't look dangerous, but you feel the impact. You feel it in your chest, in the delays, the confusion, the emotional noise. That is no coincidence. You've been walking with a weight that isn't yours, and the moment you name it, the healing begins. That's what Joanna did. After realizing the effect of that relationship, she didn't cut ties immediately, but she created boundaries. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped overgiving. She recentered her fire. And something extraordinary happened. Her business began to grow again. She got invited to speak at a local women's event. Her eyes, once tired and sunken, began to glow again. That's not magic. That's energy returning to its rightful owner. So I ask you, Sagittarius, who is draining your fire? Whose approval are you still trying to earn, even when their presence leaves you cold? What supportive person makes you question your own worth behind closed doors? You are not imagining this. The universe doesn't repeat signs for no reason. The disconnection you feel, the emotional resistance, it is your soul trying to protect itself. And now you're being asked to listen. Because until you name the energy that blocks your path, you can't walk it freely. You may not need confrontation. You may not need to leave. But you do need truth. Quiet truth. Deep truth. Sagittarius truth. The kind that doesn't hide in shadows but shines in daylight, unafraid. In the next gate, we will talk about how this energetic interference manifests in your life. Lost opportunities, unclear thoughts, damaged relationships. But for now, let this be your sacred pause. You are not too sensitive. You are not overthinking. You are finally seeing clearly. And that clarity, that's the beginning of your return. Gate 2. The signs you've been under attack, and the truth hidden in the chaos. Sagittarius, now that you've begun to name what once felt invisible, a new clarity starts to rise, one that can no longer be ignored. So let's ask the harder question. How has this energy shown up in your life? How has someone else's unresolved pain slowly entangled itself into the roots of your progress, your peace, your dreams? You see, toxic energy doesn't always come through obvious sabotage. Sometimes it's much more subtle and more dangerous because of it. It shows up in missed opportunities, creative blocks, indecision, sudden conflict, or a strange heaviness that clouds your once brilliant vision. I remember a client named Denise, 56, Sagittarius, mother of 2, former accountant turned spiritual coach. She had just begun leading her first women's empowerment circles when everything started to feel off. Her clients stopped showing up. Her own sleep became restless. She felt uninspired, even numb. I was doing what I loved, she told me, but it felt like I was dragging a shadow I couldn't see. As we worked through her sessions, the truth emerged. A woman she'd known for 30 years, a childhood friend, was silently seeding doubt behind her back. Subtle comments like, "Well, Denise always did have a flair for drama," or "She thinks she's a healer now," had begun to circulate through mutual circles. And though Denise never heard them directly, she felt the shift. The distancing. The cold shoulders. The energy withdrawal. Sagittarius, you have a deep spiritual radar. Even if the world denies what's happening, you feel it. And the most heartbreaking part? You often blame yourself. You say, "Maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe I need thicker skin." But let me be the voice that cuts through that noise. You are not overreacting. You are being spiritually alerted. When someone close to you carries resentment toward your light, it sends vibrations, sometimes intentional, sometimes not. But either way, those vibrations ripple through your energetic field. You become tired for no reason. Your plans collapse mysteriously. You forget your own brilliance. And slowly, without knowing why, you begin shrinking. You of all signs were not made to shrink. So let's get honest. Have you been second-guessing your own voice? Have unexpected conflicts popped up around things that once flowed easily? Have you noticed people pulling away without explanation? Have you been having vivid, uneasy dreams that leave you feeling emotionally drained in the morning? These aren't random. They're signs. They're the universe saying, "Wake up. This isn't yours." Someone else's pain has been passed on to you. Sometimes it's a jealous coworker. Sometimes it's a relative who masks their envious concern. Sometimes it's a woman who once praised your fire, but now resents that she no longer burns with her own. Here's the truth. People often fear what you represent. And as a Sagittarius woman, you represent boldness, truth, healing, and freedom. You've dared to rise, to believe, to dream. And for those still stuck in fear, your rise feels like an insult. But you're not responsible for their shadows. You are only responsible for your light. I want to share one more story about Ellen, a 63-year-old Sagittarius homemaker who had spent most of her adult life caring for everyone else. She was preparing to launch a YouTube channel for midlife women, her long-held dream. But the week she began filming, strange things started happening. Her camera kept malfunctioning. Her confidence collapsed. She even fell ill for 2 weeks straight. When we explored deeper, it became clear her younger sister, who had always lived in competition with her, had made a single cutting remark. "What makes you think anyone wants to hear you talk?" That sentence, said in jest, was all it took. Ellen spiraled. She almost gave up. But she didn't. Because when she finally allowed herself to name the pain, to acknowledge the sabotage, her energy shifted. She lit a candle, wrote that sentence down, and said aloud, "I return this to its sender. This was never mine to carry." And then, her voice came back. Her strength returned. Her videos started flowing. And within months, she had a community of over 10,000 women finding healing through her stories. So I ask you now, what patterns in your life began right after a specific encounter? A phone call, a message, a comment that felt off but you brushed aside? Trace it. Don't excuse it. Your energy never lies. Sagittarius, the signs are not trying to scare you. They're trying to protect you. And in the next gate, we'll talk about exactly how to cut cords with that toxic energy. How to close the door not with hate, but with sacred clarity and inner peace. But for now, ask yourself, what have I been carrying that doesn't belong to me? Who have I been trying to prove myself to, even when they only respond with silence or subtle harm? Your soul already knows the answer. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. This is where your power begins. Gate 3. The ritual of release, reclaiming the light that was always yours. Sagittarius, now that you've seen the signs, now that you've felt the quiet unraveling of energy that wasn't yours, there's one more step. And it may be the most sacred step of all. Letting go without hate and returning to yourself without guilt. Many people think that to break free from toxic energy you need to fight, to confront, to expose. But as a Sagittarius, your path is higher. It's not about drama. It's about choosing truth over chaos, peace over punishment. You don't need to scream. You don't need to convince anyone. You only need to remember who you are. You were never meant to be consumed by someone else's pain. You were born to walk with fire in your bones and wisdom in your words. And if someone has dimmed your light, subtly, silently over time, then today, you get to reclaim every single spark they tried to take. Let me show you how. First, take a breath. Not just a physical breath. A soul breath. The kind that shakes something loose inside you. Now close your eyes and imagine a room. A golden room glowing with light. Not from lamps, not from the sun, but from your own essence. This light isn't borrowed. It's yours. It's been there since the moment you were born. In the corner of this room is a door. It's slightly open. That's where the energy entered, the one that made you question yourself, hesitate, shrink. Maybe she walked in smiling. Maybe she came as family or as a friend. Maybe she offered kindness laced with judgment. Maybe she never said a word but made you feel smaller with every glance. Now I want you to walk toward that door. Not with rage. Not with fear. But with sacred authority. When you reach the threshold, say these words softly or loudly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that your soul means it. I do not hate you, but I cannot carry you anymore. Your pain is not mine. Your fear is not mine. Your story is not mine to live. And with that, you close the door. Not to shut someone out, but to return to yourself. Fully. Finally. This is what Ellen did after her sister's subtle sabotage. This is what Joanna did after years of energetic depletion from someone she once called a best friend. And this is what you are doing now, not because you're cold, but because you're awake. Forgiveness, Sagittarius, isn't letting someone back in. Forgiveness is setting your heart free from a contract it never agreed to sign. It's saying, I release you so I can rise. Here's what happens next when you truly let go. Your mind becomes clearer. Your energy starts returning. Your intuition strengthens. The right people find their way back into your life, the ones who see you and celebrate you. And most beautifully, your path opens. The blocks dissolve. The fog lifts. You begin again, but this time with your fire intact. I want you to trust the process, even if it's slow, even if you still feel doubt. That's okay. The shift has already begun. Sagittarius, you don't need to fight for freedom. You only need to claim it. Not with fire this time, but with light. So I ask you now, from the deepest place of truth in your soul, what part of yourself are you ready to reclaim? Your voice, your joy, your power, your peace, whatever it is, know this. It's already on its way back to you. And in the conclusion that follows, I'll walk with you one last step to honor everything you've released and everything you're about to become. Conclusion. The fire has returned, and it's yours to keep. Sagittarius, take a deep breath. You've walked through something powerful. You didn't just listen to a message today, you stepped into a mirror and you saw clearly. You saw the invisible threads pulling at your spirit. You named what was draining you. And more importantly, you chose to let go. That isn't small. That is soul work. That is courage in its highest form. So many people go their whole lives feeling something is off but never pausing to ask, why do I feel this way? Who around me changes the way I breathe, the way I dream, the way I speak about myself? But you did. You asked. You faced the discomfort. And in doing so, you broke a cycle. You are no longer carrying someone else's wounds. You're no longer watering a connection that poisons your roots. You are standing finally in the center of your own light. And now I want you to take a moment and honor that. Not with noise, not with explanations, but with one sacred, undeniable truth. You chose yourself, not out of spite, not from revenge, but from wisdom, from maturity, from knowing your soul deserves more. And I want to ask you honestly and from the heart, what part of today's message struck you the most? Was there a sentence, a memory, a truth that echoed something you've always known deep down? Please share it in the comments. Not just for me, but for every other Sagittarius soul who's walking through the same invisible fire. We heal through witnessing, through words, through knowing someone else has made it through. And if you've never commented before, let this be your first whisper into the light. I choose myself. Here at Zodiac Wisdom, we're not here for prediction. We're here for transformation. And this journey we're on, it doesn't end here. We're only just beginning. So if you're a Sagittarius or you love someone who is, stay with us. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and return whenever your soul needs reminding of its power. Because I promise you this, your story is sacred, and what's coming next will meet the version of you who's finally ready to receive it. You don't need to be louder, or tougher, or smaller to be safe. You just need to be you, truthful, open, and free. And that is more than enough.